The St. Elora Hospital had been abandoned for over 2 decades, left to rot after a series of disturbing events that forced its closure. Located at the edge of town, hidden behind a crumbling stone wall and overgrown hedges, it was a place locals refused to talk about. Children were warned to stay away. Older residents lowered their voices when it was mentioned, if they spoke of it at all. The official reason for its shutdown was listed as structural concerns and administrative mismanagement, but everyone knew the truth ran deeper, far more terrifying than what was written in any report. Before its downfall, St. Elora was once the town's busiest medical facility, with a particular emphasis on psychiatric care. But whispers began to spread about strange treatments happening behind locked doors. Patients who were admitted for minor issues never came back out. Nurses quit mid-shift and refused to explain why. Some claimed to have seen figures standing at the ends of hallways, unmoving, staring. Others said they heard whispering voices coming from the walls. No one could ever prove anything, but the rumors multiplied. It wasn't long before families began demanding answers, until one night, a fire broke out in the West Wing. 3 patients and a nurse were reported missing. Their bodies were never recovered. After that, the hospital was sealed shut, but the legend of St. Elora only grew. Teenagers dared each other to break in. Paranormal investigators came with cameras and infrared scopes, hoping to capture something from beyond. Most left empty-handed, visibly shaken but unwilling to admit what they'd experienced. Some, however, never left at all. Despite years of decay, the hospital remained unsettlingly intact. Graffiti stained the outer walls, and shards of glass crunched underfoot, but inside, medical records still lay scattered on desks. 4 bags hung limp from rusted stands, and stretchers sat frozen in time. The silence inside wasn't comforting, it was oppressive, like the building itself was holding its breath. Locals claimed the hospital was cursed, a place where pain had soaked into the walls, where time itself had refused to move forward. Strange. Lights were sometimes seen in the windows at night, long after it was abandoned. And always, the same feeling was reported by those who dared to enter, an overwhelming sense of being watched. The building had no power. The electricity had been cut off years ago, and the main generator had rusted into useless scrap. Yet somehow, as the group wandered deeper into the East Wing, the old surveillance system flickered to life. One by one, the monitors mounted on. The security desk began to glow with a soft, static-filled light, humming faintly like a heartbeat coming from the walls. Dust coated the equipment, and mold crept over the console buttons, but still, the screens worked at first. Nothing unusual appeared, just empty hallways, peeling wallpaper, collapsed ceilings, and silence. But then something shifted. One screen showed movement, not fast or frantic, but slow, steady. A dark figure stood in the frame at the far end of a corridor. It didn't move, not visibly. But with each flicker of the screen, it was closer. And closer. The room temperature dropped sharply. Static crackled louder. Every monitor now displayed different angles of the same hallway, yet the figure appeared in all of them at the same time. It was impossible. Each camera was positioned in different locations, but the figure, tall, shadowed, unidentifiable, seemed to exist in every space. Simultaneously, none of the group could explain how the system powered on or why the cameras worked, but they felt its presence. The figure never walked, never turned, never revealed a face, but it was watching. That much was certain. Old tapes lay piled near the console, labeled with dates from decades ago. One of the group, trembling, slid a tape into the dusty player. The screen went black for a moment before showing grainy footage of a patient being wheeled down a corridor, followed silently by the same dark figure, moving just as it had now, frame by frame, always watching. the corridors of St. Elora Hospital, twisted unnaturally, as though the building itself had shifted over time. Walls that once marked clean hospital sections now felt like a maze, overrun by shadows and decay. Every step echoed louder than it should have, bouncing off the tile like footsteps in a tunnel. The air was heavy, the kind that clung to your lungs, thick with mildew, rot, and something harder to describe something wrong. As the group moved forward, the fluorescent lights above buzzed sporadically. Some blinked weakly, others remained dark, casting the hall in alternating patches of shadow and harsh glare. And then came the sound, again light, deliberate footsteps behind them. They turned quickly, no one there, but the sound persisted, as if someone was always just one step behind, careful not to be seen. Whispers floated in and out of earshot, not from a single direction, but from all around. They were unintelligible at first, almost like air slipping through vents, but grew sharper with every corridor. It didn't feel like a haunting, it felt like surveillance, like something with intent was following. Not to scare, but to study. Every room entered gave off the same feeling. Eyes behind curtains, shadows that lingered too long, reflections that didn't match their movements. The presence wasn't loud or aggressive, it was quiet and constant. It waited just beyond the corner, just behind the next door, just out of reach. The longer they stayed, the stronger the feeling became, like pressure rising in their ears. They tried to rationalize it. Wind through broken windows, old buildings settling, but no explanation held up when the hair on their arms stood on end, or when each person began to feel sure, absolutely sure, that someone was walking beside them unseen. The monitors continued to buzz faintly, their screens showing distorted views of the hospital's winding halls. Static occasionally interrupted the footage, but the figure never disappeared. It was always there, sometimes at the end of a hallway, other times just outside a doorframe, head tilted as if listening. What made it worse was that none of them could find it in person. Every time someone tried to reach the hallway where the figure had just appeared, it was gone, but glanced back at the monitor and it was still there. They split up to check different wings, each carrying a flashlight and a growing sense of dread. Yet the monitors seemed to follow them, like a live feed of their every move, but delayed off by a few seconds, just enough to cause unease. The figure remained in every feed, slowly shifting position. One screen would show it standing perfectly, still. Another would catch it mid-step, like a photograph of movement between frames. Never caught in action, that always changing places. It made no sense. The angles didn't align. How could the same figure be on the second floor and in the basement at the same time? How did it seem to know where each person would turn before they moved? The worst moment came when one of them caught their own reflection on a monitor, only to see the figure standing directly behind them. When they turned, flashlight trembling in their hand, the hallway was empty. Panic set in. The cameras were no longer passive observers. They were part of whatever was inside this place. They weren't recording the figure, they were feeding it. It was never in the room, never caught with the naked eye, but it was always present in the screen's glow, never looking at the camera, always at the person watching. They tried to retrace their steps, but the hospital's layout had changed. Corridors that once led to the main entrance now twisted in unfamiliar directions. Doors they had come through minutes before no longer existed. Every turn only brought them deeper into the facility. Panic began to rise, but it wasn't the kind that led to running. It was slower, more suffocating, like drowning in a place where gravity bent differently, no matter which hallway they chose. It ended in another empty ward, another locked room, another dead end lined with rusted stretchers and shattered medical equipment. It became clear that the hospital didn't want them to leave. The walls seemed to stretch longer, the ceilings higher, and the flickering lights dimmer with each Passing minute, the presence, whatever it was, had grown bolder. They could feel it pressing against their backs, just out of sight, like a breath in the darkness. Some began to hear voices not whispering, but calling them by name. Each person claimed to hear someone different. A sibling, a parent, a long-lost friend. It was luring them, using memory and emotion like bait. One of the group thought they saw a door they hadn't tried before, marked exit in peeling green letters. As they ran toward it, the hallway stretched like elastic, pushing the door farther and farther away. And just before reaching it, the walls closed in. The door vanished out. It became clear there was no escape. Not through doors, not through windows, not even by retracing their steps. Time didn't work normally anymore. Clocks had stopped ticking. Phones lost signal the moment they entered. Even their own voices began to echo strangely, distorted as if bouncing through miles of tunnel dot, and through it all, the feeling remained. Something was following, waiting, always watching. ***, please like and subscribe Fear Frequency.